Have you ever met someone cool, had a great connection with them, felt so much hope for the future, and then had it end like this? Don't get too down on yourself because it obviously happened to me too, and in the worst way possible, with a musical theater kid who lives in Indiana and who was 23 when I was 32. But he was 6'4", so. In this video, we'll explore the science behind why this happens, why you shouldn't feel any shame about it, and what you can do instead, both to manage your anxiety and to have better outcomes in dating. So if you deal with anxious attachment, then you know what it's like to genuinely really want connection, but to constantly struggle with feeling like love is just out of reach, that it's scarce, that it's not possible. And the thing about this feeling of scarcity is that it can create tremendous feelings of anxiety in the process of finding and forming romantic connection. Sometimes we even put our self-worth on sale by acting on that anxiety, whether that's externally, like desperately making attempts at keeping or deepening a connection, or internally, like engaging in endless mental rumination, trying to analyze the other person's behaviors, feelings, intentions, texts, Instagram follows, discarded trash, and of course there's the engine that fuels all of this tomfoolery. Picking the kinds of people who make it easy for us to repeat all of the above again and again, ultimately and ironically reinforcing our feeling that love is just out of reach, that it's scarce, that it's not possible. It's easy to feel shame about this pattern because society views these behaviors and the feelings that cause them as dumb, irrational, and crazy. But the truth is that, number one, this self-defeating bullshit actually has real scientific, psychological roots, and number two, there's actually a lot you can do to shift this pattern, because if I can do it, then you can do it too. So how can we make sense of all of these dynamics and why they happen? Well, if you're here, you've probably heard of attachment theory, which says that the way that our parents and caregivers treat us and relate to us when we're children, babies, and even fetuses impact the way we learn to relate to others later on in life. This is true on physical and emotional levels, and personally, I believe it's true on a spiritual level too. So for example, if you're a baby and you cry and your parent always comes and calms you down with kindness and consistency, then you might grow up to get promotions instead of Prozac scripts, run marathons instead of swerving praise like it's a pothole, planning your week instead of losing it over laundry. But say you're a baby and you cry and your parent doesn't always come, or comes but sometimes seems upset or preoccupied, well then you might grow up to be watching this video. You went from building forts to constructing emotional walls, potty trained late, and now you overshare on the first date. You're still playing pretend, pretending that everything's fine. Okay, I'm sorry. Obviously, this is a really oversimplified explanation, but the thing you really need to know is that human babies and children are fully reliant on their caregivers for survival. So as babies, we're designed to always be looking very closely to our parents for cues about whether or not we're safe and loved, and to what extent those things might be true at any given moment. This makes sense because if you're not properly attached and attuned to your parent, you might not eat, and so you might die. So that's fair enough, right? But you might be wondering why all of these big and little interactions with our parents have such a huge and lasting impact on us, especially now in present-day adulthood. Like, it doesn't really matter if my daddy's disappointed in me. I can obviously still DoorDash. I'm not going to starve and die if my parents are mad at me. But the reason why this stuff often ends up impacting us for the rest of our lives is in part because a baby's brain is extremely plastic. The purpose for this is that so lots and lots and lots of connections can be made between different brain cells in order to help babies learn about their environment quickly and what it takes to survive and be functional in the world. A little bit later, many of these connections are pruned, which means that a lot of them go away if they're not used. Again, oversimplified explanation, but we don't have time to waste. We got to get back to obsessing over old texts. No, we're not doing that anymore, but okay, I'm still doing it, but let's put it all together. As babies, we stayed paying the most attention to our interactions with parents and early caregivers because it was crucial to our survival. And these interactions and patterns happened while we were still developing, when our brains were super plastic. So now when it comes to anxious attachment, if your parents were inattentive or unpredictable, be it in their presence or their mood or both, at some subconscious level, two things might have happened to you. You might have learned to panic and long for that parent, setting the scene for more panic and longing later on, especially because we repeat what's familiar and we equate what's familiar with what's safe. In addition to this pattern of longing getting etched in your growing little baby brain, you might have taken that parent's behavior really personally as a small little baby can, and assumed that their absence or inconsistency was your fault, or that it happened because you weren't good enough. Again, this is oversimplified because obviously babies don't have lofty, complex thoughts about themselves or other people, but these relating patterns, feelings, and nervous system responses do get etched in our systems and our psyches, and this particular pattern we're talking about often leads to lots of longing and self-esteem issues later on. It's also worth mentioning real quick that this often isn't a parent's fault. It can result from innocent things like processing grief or a busy schedule or having to work to provide for the family, having older parents to take care of. And these normal life things can lead to parents being absent or inconsistent or both. Obviously, this can also result from more severe issues like abuse or addiction. Sometimes it's a long pattern that creates attachment wounds. Sometimes it's just one or a few incidents. But regardless of the nature and cause of the attachment injury, these relationships and interactions matter a lot to our ability to find and form healthy relationships later on. So at this point, I'm sure you're wondering what the fuck to do about all of this. But before we talk about that, the plot unfortunately thickens. And so does my uterine lining, again and again, month after month, because I'm 35, have no man, and if you listen really closely, you can hear the unceremonious sound of the last of my eggs disintegrating as I make YouTube videos about my attachment issues. Anyway, we've established now that the attachment patterns we learned when we were babies or small children often follow us throughout our lives and influence how we show up in relationships and how we expect other people to show up in relationships. And the way the plot thickens is because this often creates self-fulfilling prophecies. This is also called reenactment in the field of trauma. Remember how I said that we repeat what's familiar and we mistake what's familiar for what's safe? So for example, if I'm anxious and tend to be clingy, just hypothetically, I might repeatedly end up with people who are aloof and detached. Every time this happens, it hurts and it deepens that earliest childhood wound and reinforces whatever beliefs I've picked up about myself along the way. Maybe those beliefs are that I'm not lovable, that I'm too much, that people leave once they get to know me, that I'm not desirable, that he's gonna end up marrying the blonde ex-head cheerleader and be haunted by thoughts of properly spiced food and razor-sharp ethnic cheekbones for the rest of his life. My point is that what happens in adulthood layers on top of childhood trauma, creating a sort of layer cake, if you will, of despair, suffering, and insecurity, topped with the frosting of expensive therapy bills and maybe even an Etsy love spell or two. If you know, you know. Not to mention that almost everyone who is grown and single with a cell phone has been traumatized by modern dating, especially app dating, and these things just add fuel to the fire. All right, that was a mouthful, and now you're probably still wondering where we go from here, and I promise we're gonna get to that in a second. But before we do, I hope you see all of the really scientific and valid roots of anxious attachment, and that when you think of yourself as that sad, panicked little baby, you feel super self-compassionate and understanding. It's actually really sad. Anxious attachment is not your fault. You're not crazy. You're not alone. These things came from real places. Plus, there's a lot we can do to shift this programming because even though our brains have already pruned, they're still pretty plastic. They're more microplastic than plastic, but yeah. So to recap where we started in the beginning, the problem is that you really want love and also believe that it's scarce and probably that you're not good enough to have it. Remember? Because of all the weird baby stuff we just talked about. And if you deal with this, then the early stages of dating are the biggest mindfuck because in some ways, Your ancient, weird, traumatized baby beliefs are being challenged, right? Here's a potentially amazing connection right in front of you that could disprove those subconscious nervous system soul level beliefs that love is scarce and that you're not good enough. But in the talking stage, you're kind of always teetering between the disconfirmation and confirmation of these false beliefs. You deeply desire that they're wrong and that love is possible and that you're worthy, but you're also really afraid that they're right and that love is and will always be scarce and that this is yet another shard of tangible evidence yet again that lends credibility to the feeling of unworthiness that's just caked on the insides of your heart. It's a true psychological roller coaster of hope and terror, and in the midst of all of that, it's really easy to feel urgency, right? You just want to get rid of that scary teetering feeling. You just want to jump right in and grab and keep that person. You want them to like you a lot, and you want reassurance that you're good enough, obviously. So here's the major point that I've been working towards in this video. The things that anxious attachment makes you want to do: go fast, share a lot, seek that deep intimacy right away, win the person over, increase your anxiety, and continuously confirm your false belief that love is scarce. Stay with me, let me cook. I promise it will be properly spiced. My big proposal is that your focus in early dating needs to be on managing the risk and anxiety you feel in the early stages of dating while collecting more information about the person and the connection so you can see what it could be and what you want it to be. This is way different than the way anxiously attached people usually approach dating, and it might sound really unattainable, but I promise you can do it. And I'm going to give you the actual concrete steps I've adopted and tried that have worked for me. And I encourage you to listen with an open heart and mind. And if something sounds like it might work for you, then treat it like an experiment. Try it. So step one is to make a massive mental shift around the actual purpose of dating. It takes time to know someone and what a connection really is. It should feel more like a gradual discovery and less of like an instant binary yes or no, lock and key kind of feeling. For me, it's super easy to jump ahead and get very black and white about these things by looking for these like undeniable, fateful signs right away that they're the one and we're just gonna have this beautiful life or relationship together, or that they're not. And it's actually harder for me to do that the longer I've been single, because every time it's like, oh my God, it's finally here. I found it at last. Is it happening? Is it happening? But dating, especially in the beginning, is really about evaluating them and the connection, not about forcing an outcome or about using their acceptance or admiration of you as validation to finally prove your worth. Side note, for me, all of this is really tied up in my fight or flight patterns. It's filled with feelings of pain and pleasure, euphoria and disappointment, and all of that drama is very stimulating to me, which is a video for a different day. But the point I'm trying to make is that I'm not saying this mental model shift will immediately or always or even usually translate into this feeling like the truth in your body, but keeping it top of mind and repeatedly reminding yourself of the fact that dating is an exploration and a discovery and not this fateful, karmic, cinematic drama or holy rapture. It actually can make a big difference in the way you approach it. And by the way, this all goes hand in hand with the idea that dating is supposed to be fun. Have you heard people peddle this conspiracy theory? But think about it, right? When you're exploring something, it's way easy to have fun in that situation than it is when you're like desperately looking for conclusive proof of something and the stakes feel really high and intense and filled with panic. So there's that. Okay, step 2. Let me tell you right now, you're not gonna like this one, but it's actually the most powerful tip in this video, and that is to lower the stakes, lower the feeling of risk and therefore your level of anxiety by going slower. I know, it's terrible, but this is what it can look like, okay? My first tip for going slower is to do shorter dates in the beginning, maybe like 2 or 2.5 hours, maybe like no more than a couple times a week, and trying to limit building the connection over text or phone calls or FaceTimes, since that's really like not the same as learning the person or the connection in real life. To be clear, there's no hard and fast rules. It's gonna differ between each person, and I think you also kind of have to do what's right for you. My second tip for going slower is equally as painful, and that is to not be physical until that person has shown you that they can be consistent, like not even making out. And I know that sounds terrible. And I actually found out about this tip on accident because there was a couple times where I got ghosted or a connection I was excited about otherwise died, and those instances were significantly less painful than they should have been. Than I was used to them being. And I was like, wait, why does this hurt way less than it's supposed to? And then I was like, oh, we never swapped DNA. I know this sucks. This piece of advice sucks, but just try it. Do it for me, and let the record show that I could also hugely benefit from taking my own advice about this. To be honest, I've had yet to successfully do this on purpose. It has only ever happened by accident. It's also hard because I feel like I'm like a vampiress. It's like a word, right? The female version of a vampire. But anyway, I feel like I'm a vampiress of anxious attachment. I have to get dosed with an F-boy's DNA every 100 days, or I start to vaporize or like melt. You think I'm kidding, but I really do keep track of how many days it's been. My third tip for going slow is to pump the brakes on sharing sensitive information super fast. Obviously, everyone has things about themselves that feel really intimate to share. I know it can be so tempting to share them, to like test the other person, see if they'll still like you if they know about this thing, to create this like depth and intensity and intimacy by sharing your deepest, darkest secrets and have them still like you. Obviously, individual circumstances may vary. Sometimes it makes sense and is actually ethical to share sensitive information upfront. But as a rule, try not to share your super sensitive shit super early. Step 3, learn how to calm yourself down. The early stages of dating are really anxiety provoking for all of the reasons we've already discussed. And that's true even for normal people. By the way, I use normal people as a slur, but it's even more true for people with any kind of attachment trauma. And it's a mindfuck because it's hard to know what's your intuition and what's your anxiety. And if something has happened that's bothering you, it can feel like a really pressing question that only the other person can answer for you right away. In dating, but also more broadly in life, most of us were never taught self-regulation skills, which means how to calm down your fight or flight reaction, how to calm down when you feel really activated and anxious. Remember, you're still microplastic. You can still learn these skills now. And they can actually dramatically improve your quality of life in general, but also help you get through those panicked moments in dating and engage with the other person who you're talking to with more intention and deliberateness, which is usually more effective when it comes to trying to resolve whatever it is that's making you anxious in the first place. So here's a quick list of where you can get started in terms of self-regulation strategies or ways to calm yourself down. But before we get into it, just have to say this is not medical advice. So you might want to talk to your doctor or therapist for mental health guidance when trying new things. Maybe, especially if your mental health has a history of being properly spiced. It's a neurospicy pun if you caught it, but yeah. Also, if you try any of these things and they make you feel worse, stop. Don't do it. Stop. Just stop it. And talk to a doctor or a therapist because, again, this is not medical advice and I actually have no assets. So if you try to sue me, we will both waste time we could have spent analyzing texts instead. So my first tip for calming yourself down is to practice letting go of the sticky thoughts. A sticky thought is a thought you just can't get out of your mind. It might be like, why hasn't this person texted me back? How do they really feel? Are they seeing other people? Who are they hanging out with on their story? And it's a thought that causes you a lot of turmoil and is not productive to continuously loop on again and again. So the process for letting go of a sticky thought is very simple. It's easy to do. And I'll link a resource in the caption that you can use. The difficult part is just committing to doing it and not taking that thought super seriously and really just practicing letting it go. When I do this, I like to make a sheet where I put the thought, I put what I'd like to think instead. I might write some other notes for myself, but having it on paper kind of helps me commit to it. I will say that when I start letting go of the thought, sometimes the thought increases in frequency, but eventually After like a few minutes or hours, depending on the thought and how I feel, it really does start to decrease in intensity the less attention that you give it. Your mileage might vary, but I do think this is a really powerful resource when you're dealing with really sticky thoughts. My second tip for calming yourself down is to try out different body regulation methods. That's just strategies you can use to calm yourself down, really at the like body somatic level. Try out some different ones and then start to consistently use the ones you like best. So examples of ones you've probably heard of are breathing, tapping, movement. My personal favorite is called pendulation, and this is one I literally use frequently, specifically for anxious attachment in dating. And what this means is to locate in your body where you feel the anxiety, where you feel the distress, like literally where in your body do you feel it? And then pick a different place in your body that feels neutral or feels good, and just shift your attention between where you feel the anxiety and like how it feels, temperature, like texture, if you can feel any of that. Shift between that and the neutral or good feeling part just a few times. And I have to tell you, it works like magic. It's always helped me feel better. It's not like a cure all. You're not going to feel like 100% resolved on the issue, but it really does help to calm you down, which is the whole point of these strategies. And I'll make sure there's a link in the caption for a video that explains more about pendulation and how to do it. I will say that the actual regulation methods you use are way less important than just recognizing when you're feeling anxious and clinging, since you're so good at that, clinging to the truth that the next step you should take is to try to self-regulate and calm yourself down. It's not to obsess or analyze, try to figure it out, or engage with the person or the problem that's making you anxious. Some people might disagree, but it's my personal opinion that it's usually a lot more effective to calm yourself down through the initial burst of energy, anxiety, triggered reaction, and then try to engage with the person or the problem. It's just a lot more productive. And again, it's not about catering to them, making it more comfortable for them, not being embarrassed about them. It's more about what's best for you and increasing the chance that you can feel strong and clear going into these conversations, especially in early dating, when coming to somebody with a problem when you're really anxious and activated is actually pretty vulnerable. Again, it's not bad, it's not embarrassing, it's just vulnerable. And we're trying here to carefully manage the risk because that helps with anxiety. Also, after you regulate yourself, you might decide that the thing that was upsetting you isn't something you want to talk about with them or bring up just yet, or maybe it just doesn't even bother you anymore. So that's the power of self-regulation. When you do all of the things we've been talking about, shifting your mindset around dating, viewing it as an exploration, taking things slow, learning how to self-regulate when you get anxious, you actually treat yourself better during the process of dating. And stay with me, that's actually a form of self-love. Ironically and beautifully, treating yourself this way by taking these steps increases your connection to the truth that love is abundant and that you are good enough, because there's literally more love living inside of you because you're actively caring for your own experience and needs. I would even go so far as to say that the more you practice these 3 steps, the more you're manifesting love in the way you treat yourself. And by manifestation, I don't mean like the weird secret think better thoughts thing. I mean like neurobiologically. Because when you treat yourself better, others do too, and you won't let someone treat you worse than you treat yourself, right? So you set the standard by showing yourself that you are good enough if you're good enough for you. Over time, these practices also have the added benefit of changing the way you feel inside, and therefore naturally changing the way you act outwardly, which can attract different, better people and create different, better outcomes. To be clear, I'm not saying that your attachment trauma or dating woes are your fault. I'm just saying, hey, if you change up the inside, you might change up what's happening on the outside as well. Just a thought. The other thing that happens when you practice these methods is that you lower the ceiling on your panic and anxiety. By pacing yourself, you put a little self-loving wrench in the cycle of feeling like love is scarce, acting from that place of lack, picking people who confirm that, behaving in ways that increase your panic and anxiety, and then confirming your belief that love is scarce. Again and again, around we go. So, I mean, if you think about it, scarcity and panic kind of go hand in hand, right? So if you decrease the panic, it's easier to feel, believe, and materialize the truth that love is within reach, that love is abundant, and that love is actually possible. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for watching and listening. This video was actually made possible by friends and supporters who generously contributed to a little fundraiser I did on my birthday to raise a little money to get me started on this journey. Because not disappointing the people who love and support me the most, after taking their literal actual money, was the level of pressure I needed to make this. So if you liked it, please, 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 I'm desperately begging you, I'm triple texting you, I'm flying to Indiana for you. Subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, and let me know if anything resonated or was helpful, because maybe if you validate me enough, I might just keep going with my dream of continuing to make things like this. So look at me in my healthy relating patterns. But okay, bye. See you soon. You know, I had it initially that I was going to lick this, but I don't actually want microplastics in my body. So yeah. But this is the sign that he used when he picked me up from the airport. It says, "Hey girl, hey, do you think I should have known that he was going to ghost me?" Do you? You think I should have known?
Hey girl, hey. It's the 4 Ys.
It's the 4 Ys?
Yeah.
That's the dead giveaway?
Yeah.
I mean, he is a musical theater kid, so, you know, he could come beat us up. Could come sing us a mean song.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, bye. Thank you. See you soon. That was... Oh, I hated that.
Let's do it again. You don't need that.
Bye.